much, Olani. Let's go to this now. The Legal Resource Centre says the Children's Act needs a major overhaul or separate legislation for early childhood development. Some stakeholders argue that the law doesn't address reform. Early child development encompasses physical, socio-emotional, cognitive and motor development for those aged between 0 and 8. For more on this, we're joined by the Legal Resources Centre's attorney, Sipesihle Mkuka. Sipesihle, good evening, and thank you so much for your time tonight. Certainly, when one reads some of the submissions that you have put forward here, it sounds like you're not entirely happy with this process of moving early childhood development centres out of the care of the Social Development Department to the Basic Education Department.
Good evening. Thank you very much for this opportunity. So I'd just like to firstly clarify that the submission that we made were firstly on behalf of the Makhanda ECD Forum, which is a non-profit organization representing about 80 plus minus 80 ECD practitioners. So we're not entirely happy with the proposed amendments that the bill intends to make. And I think we've made it very clear in our submissions. And I'd like to quickly just highlight as to why we're not happy with those, with the proposed amendments. So, for example, the forum has identified about 4 key areas within which they'd like to see reform. And that, like the first one, is that the bill does not streamline the complicated registration process, that infrastructure support is not clarified, and that ECD to poor communities does not remain compulsory. And then lastly, that the bill does not provide for simpler, adequate health and safety program standards.
And when one then looks at, what you're saying, are you then saying that, this bill in its current form needs to then be reimagined, or should we have a new legislation altogether that looks at early childhood development?
So there was I think the portfolio committee had a meeting last week, Friday, within which they made a decision, I think, to reject all the ECD related provisions in the current bill and then to introduce a second amendment bill. So we would like to say that we are in full support of this because, but we would like the portfolio committee to commit to the following things. The first thing that we'd like for the portfolio committee to commit to is very strict and urgent timelines for the finalization of the second amendment bill, and then which will clearly outline the key reforms that a number of stakeholders have outlined. And then secondly, we would like them to clearly establish who will be responsible for leading the finalization of the second amendment bill.
And how important will the issue then of developing health and safety standards, because apart from registration, this has also been an issue when it comes to ensuring compliance, particularly when it comes to early childhood development centers?
So in its current form, right, the Act is not clear about who is responsible for developing health and safety standards for ECD programs and also for ensuring compliance with them. So you'll find that mostly municipalities often have to make their own requirements that are often inaccessible to the practitioners. Now, we're saying that in order for these centers to comply with these standards, they firstly need to understand them. So we're saying that it's very important that these safety standards are made clear in order for the practitioners to comply with them. Because how can you not comply with something that you don't understand? And this is quite critical because this speaks to the safety of the children that attend these ECD centers.
And certainly when you look at that, and also coupled with the issue of registration, are you then proposing here that there be some sort of a process that then also unfolds even outside of legislation to then take the practitioners through every single step of the way to ensure that they know of issues of compliance, they know how to deal with issues of registration, they know how to deal with issues of resources, because we've seen also where resources are concerned, compounded by the COVID-19 pandemic, compounded by issues of registration. Are you then suggesting that a parallel process then ensues in order to also bring them up to speed with these particular regulations?
Yes, definitely. That is in line with what the practitioners of the forum have asked for, because they say that when you have to register, for example, as an ECD practitioner, you have to register for 3 things. And with these 3 things that you have to register for, there are a number of documents that you have to compile, right, to meet the requirements. And now the Department of Social Development offers no support to these practitioners. And like I said, many of these centers operate in very poor communities and they don't have access to resources at all. So they often have to use their own resources. Like I said, that is already quite limited. So what the forum is asking for is that the department also offers them support in the form of workshops where they educate them in how, for example, to comply with with the registration process. And also what they're asking for is for one-line streamlined registration process.
All right. Thank you so much for your time tonight. That was Sipesihle Mkuka, who is from the Legal Resource Center.